It's a proprietary material, and it's actually made by pouring resins out of a barrel. So they pour it out of a barrel and make flat sheets. From there, it's fabricated. The windscreens are fabricated just like everything else, where they put it in a mold, heat it, and it sinks into the mold to get the shape. One of the secrets that we learned that F1 didn't listen to us was when you do a shape like that, you want to have a constant radius. So if you think of a glass that's constant and cut a sliver out of it and then plop it on top of the car, that's effectively what we did. It's pretty simple knowledge, and that was the secret to our clarity. When Scott drove it in Phoenix, there's two. I'll talk about the testing because Joseph really didn't have a problem, but he did have a problem. Dixon had just come from 24 hours of Daytona, so he had spent however many days behind a windscreen, day, night. And before the Phoenix test, we put him in the car on Thursday. We ran at high noon, midday, and then at night. And he said, absolutely zero problem. And Scott's a guy who doesn't have a lot of problems anyway, but he said, I know it's there because he can look up and see the sky, so he knows what's real, but he said it's no problem. So he hadn't been in a car since Daytona, so it was natural to him. When we got to Speedway, Joseph had run the test. It was an open test there for us. He had run all afternoon on a beautiful, typical Indy day, bright sun, and he's looking out just his shield, so he's got a nice clear view. We popped this windshield on, windscreen on at 5:30 at night or whatever, and it was different. It is different. You're still looking through a glass. It's no different than looking out the side of your window down on your car versus the windscreen. And so couple of things. We know you have to cover the top of the car with a black mat. If you look at any of the sports cars or the NASCARs, it's all black in there because any reflection reflects up into their face. Penske hadn't done that. They had tested all day, just hadn't got to it. So that was the first thing. He sat down and said, hey, I see my reflection. It's like, okay, put the black mat on. We were good to go with that. And then we found out that the Bell shields he was wearing are double pane. So there's actually two thicknesses of glass, and even the colored Bell shields are two thicknesses. That's where we were getting some of the reflections. Dixon wears an Arai helmet. They're a single layer other than their rain shield, so he didn't have that problem. Joseph saw it. We switched to a clear shield. It helped a little bit. But his comment was, look, Jeff, if you mandate this, I get used to it, no problem. But it is different. You are looking through a little bit. Our glass is somewhere between a half inch and 400 thou thick, so it's pretty thick, which it has to be strong. He said his probably biggest comment was there's a little bit of reference problem when he goes out towards the wall in the short chute, but he said it's just a matter of getting used to it. So while he said there was some problem, we asked him to tell us everything that's wrong. That was it, but he said, no problem. You put it on, and we're good to go.
How high is this, and how have you tested to avoid what happened to not only Justin, but also happened to James Hinchcliffe? He got bopped on the head and knocked
Right.
out. Fortunately, he didn't. That was all that happened. But is this thing up high enough, and will it create enough of a draft that'll kick a 10-pound?
We're just getting ready to prove that out. The height of the windscreen is just above the driver's helmet. So on our cars, our drivers, even the tall ones, typically set right at the rear of the headrest or slightly above. So the windscreen ends at about that level. So the idea is everything, the slope of the windscreen sets at a 24-degree angle. So we're thinking everything's going to hit and deflect off. And again, part of the thing, we didn't want this thing to look bad, so that was the decision. And really, based on some of the modeling and stuff we've done, you really only need it just above the helmet to deflect everything.
But you haven't yet tested to see if something 10 pounds that falls off a car when it hits a wall will go over this thing or hit it and bounce over.
That's correct. On paper, this Opticore material is extremely strong. The good thing and the bad thing with dealing with PPG Aerospace is they're a huge company and they're really smart. The bad thing is they're a huge company and really slow. So we have manufactured a prototype frame. It's been sent to Huntsville, Alabama, which is where we're going to test it first. PPG has the desire. They're real familiar with bird testing. We're all familiar with seeing those from the fighter jet stuff. They want to go test it there down in Huntsville first. So we've been waiting to get on the calendar down there. I've got 2 windscreens down there. They're making me 2 more, which we probably won't use down there. We're confident it'll handle the bird strikes, and they don't do birds anymore. Interesting, they have what they call gel packs now. So the tree huggers have won out, and no more frozen birds. So we have a gel pack full of material. So we'll go hit it with that, and part of the reason for doing that is PPG understands that type of impacts. That's what they've done their whole life. So when we hit this, they'll understand the dynamics of it, because the material, as thick as it is, will actually deform a little bit and then come back. That's how it releases the energy from the hit. So I was hoping, Chandler and I and Joyce were over in Pittsburgh racing last weekend. I was hoping I was going to get a call and be on an airplane Monday to go to Huntsville. And so I've asked PPG again. We're waiting for that date to go test. Should happen really with any time now.
One of the other comments I heard from, I forget which driver it was, it blocks the air and it gets kind of warm in the cockpit. Have you circumvented that problem, put holes in the bottom to get air through? Or?
Yeah, that was when Scott drove in Phoenix. 2 things, comes off the track, and the first thing he said is, it's really quiet. He said, I hear stuff I've never heard before, and we hadn't thought about that. We knew the airflow was going to be a problem because the CFD studies we did show a fair amount of air hitting the face of the helmet, as we know, because if you ever look at a driver when he comes off the track, the bug trail is on top of their helmet, and that's all gone. The cars are easy to duct air. Joseph had a little bit of a buffeting problem, which we had anticipated at the speedway. For some reason there's just a little bit of force when the air rolls over and touches the back of the helmet and wants to shove them forward. So we had modified our shock cover to include a big knock-a-duck, and we didn't do a very good job of aiming it. It fixed the problem halfway, but it did introduce a fair amount of cold air, and so the plan is to put a knock-a-duck or something in the shock cover. We have contingency. We know we have to do that, and in the final design that'll get done.
Does that affect the handling at all of the car in any way?
When, probably giving away some trade secrets, but when we introduced the knock-a-duck, which is about a 3-inch wide at the rear, it shifted the center of pressure 2% to the rear.
Really?
And it was interesting because they called him on the radio coming down pit lane and said, hey, Joseph, the center of pressure's gone 2% to the rear. So they put I forget what it was now, a turn of front wing in it. And he went back out and said that was good to go. So.
Something else that you've been working on has been worked on again. I mean, it's not the first, but it's called, interesting, a steering damper. Now, explain exactly what a steering damper is. Now, you already went through it with me because I'm not too sharp, but go through it again
okay.
For those who don't know.
So, Dr. Trammell and I, when we give a lot of talks in different organizations we're involved in, and we said, knock on wood, the windscreen's a pretty big project. That's a big animal on its own, but the rest of our world, we've started nitpicking at stuff, and we still have a wrist injury problem in IndyCar, and it all is due to when a driver hits either another car or the wall, the steering wheel will whip really quick when the front wheel gets hit. So we come up with this idea several years ago about incorporating a shock damper into a steering rack. This is not really new. I grew up, the motocrossers I rode had them. Sprint cars hang a damper off the rack. The problem we have is in an IndyCar and stuff, the tuning and stuff's a little bit different, the size is different. So along with Penske shocks, we created an integral system. If you were to look at it, you couldn't really tell the difference between it and a steering damper. We've tuned it with the valving so that when mining the data, we know a driver really can't steer more than 5 inches per second. So whipping the wheel, he can achieve that, but in an impact you do. So at the time the steering wheel sees more than 5 inches per second of travel, the rack sees more than 5 inches per second of travel, it actually latches up hydraulically with over 8,000 pounds of force, which is enough to break the toe link. So that becomes the fusible link, so it doesn't transfer that rotation into the driver's wrist anymore. So we had one Indy Lights tests. It probably was deemed unsuccessful, although analyzing the data, I think we were good. And it's gone back. The damper's gone back to Penske for some validation. We've got a lot of things on our plate. We're not sure if that's going to be introduced next year or not, but it actually literally is a direct replacement with this current rack, and the drivers will never know it's there until they need it.
Until they need it, and then all of a sudden the wheel doesn't turn. You sit there going like this, and the wheel's straight.
Yeah,
that worked well. Really well.
We've done a couple of things from our studies. Is we've asked, you've seen how the drivers all have these big grips and stuff, And actually, Trammell and I ran into this in Brazil. Dario was still driving, so 5 years ago, we were actually sitting at breakfast down there because we all stay in the same hotel, and we started hearing about some wrist injuries. So Terry put together a little questionnaire, and in the driver's meeting, we handed it out, and it turned out there was more wrist injuries than we thought. That's part of what prompted this damper. But in the meantime, we looked at the steering wheels and the designs of them, and we all remember the old days where there was no grips on the wheel when men were men, right? There was no grips on the wheel. And so in an accident situation, they literally could just open up their hand and the wheel would slide through, just like your production car. Because of the higher downforce and whatever else with the guys, they have all these big grips. So when they open their hand, the big grips were still clobbering their wrist and causing injuries. So we went through and recommended some grip redesigns, and so across the field they've calmed those down, so it's helped a little bit. But in the extreme situation, and you'll notice there was big made out of it when Danica crashed in NASCAR. There was one race where she showed her hands coming off. We've told the drivers, look, you aren't going to save the thing. You get close to the scene of the accident, let go. And so it's through some training we've eliminated some of the wrist injuries, but they're still out there. So
Yeah, for some reason, a driver thinks I can hold on.
we called it driving to the scene of the accident. It was interesting because we do a lot of studying of data, believe it or not, and we thought we had gone to paddle shifts. So the new car had gone to paddle shifts, and we'd gone to a hand clutch, and we thought that was the biggest reason for these wrist injuries. Which, when you look back at the data and you say it seems like no kidding. Is when we started road racing and the street course racing is actually, obviously there was things closer to hit and stuff. That's when we started having the bigger problems. So the correlation with the paddle shift and stuff didn't pan out as being the problem. So
You are director of engineering and safety. How involved were you in the design of the new car? Actually, it's just body work. It's the same chassis, but
my responsibilities are typically the inside of the cockpit. So all the foam you see, these cars have so much foam in them under the butt, behind the back, beside the thighs, and the headrest. Before a driver ever pours their custom seat, we've got a whole spec that they can't modify. On the outside of the car, responsibilities are the front nose cone, the rear attenuator, anything that has any absorbing, the side pod structure. So this new bodywork, we've had a couple of drivers have broken pelvises, not Bourdais at the Speedway. That was a little different situation. But if you remember, the old car had a pretty big opening behind the mirror next to the drivers. So in a T-bone situation, if you fracture the tub, the displacement of the tub actually goes in and breaks the hip or whatever. So the design on this car, it was our responsibility, Terry and I. There's a structural side pod now that's quite strong. So the idea is if it gets T-boned, it'll actually push what we call the target car away from the bullet car. So when they go to hit, and so you don't have that intrusion in the cockpit, which will cause a driver problem. So if it's a safety item, it falls under me to recommend or not like what they're doing.
You now are involved in what, F3?
F4.
F4. I'm sorry. Step up one. Excuse me.
I'm assuming
And it just so happens the driver is your son.
My wife and I are team owners, sponsors. She's our chief cook. So yeah, amongst everything.
Does Chandler help work on the car? I know he can. On the weekend, he's got a lounge and be in his chaise lounge and relax. But during the week between races, does he get his hands dirty?
Absolutely. Yeah, he's always been a working mechanic. I don't make him work on race weekends. His job is there to drive, but he never has said no to anything. When we go down to the shop, our shop that we're working out of, our team owners based in Greenwood, and he comes down and does whatever. Chandler's main responsibilities is tire management, so we have to run a combination of new tires and used tires, and he handles all of that for us. So I don't have to think about it. I do the mounting for him, but he handles all of that for us.
Do you like seeing your son behind the wheel of a car and moving his way up? I assume that the goal that he would like to attain eventually would be at 16th and Georgetown.
That's what he says.
What does his mother say? Oh, my God.
Nah, my wife's not normal. She, I mean, for one, she married me, so.
She's not normal.
No.
Okay.
We.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm sure I don't have a problem. You know, we've, because of my background, he's got the best safety equipment there is, and we try to do everything we can. Accidents happen. I've never heard her say anything. I'm sure it bothers her a little bit, but again, he's been racing since he was 5 years old, something. So.
Well, at least he got smart. He's got four wheels and something around him instead of on a motorcycle.
Yeah, no, I remember the day we were racing motorcycles. He transitioned to motocross. I think you were 12 years old, right? And I decided to get a go-kart. And I think I came home and said, hey, I'd already bought it. It was a used one in town from a local shop. And I remember coming home and saying, hey, what do you think about racing a go-kart? And I think he almost peed himself. And I showed him a picture, and the rest is history. So, and I had told him I raced Formula Fords growing up, and I'd always told him I would race Formula Fords again with him. We would buy a Formula Ford, and that would be the end of it for his mom and I. And it's gone one step farther.
It always does, you know.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. The team owner, Tony Edwards, has Alliance Racing, and he offered us a deal. He's got a son who's come out of Ford Focus Midgets who doesn't have a classical road race background, and so Chandler was really hired to do a driver training and stuff, and we've helped Tony put the team together since they haven't done any road course racing, so it's been beneficial for both of us, huge for us.
Do you have in his car stuff that other people don't have because they don't know, like safety equipment, because that's your son at the wheel?
No, we're pretty limited. This is an FIA spec car, so we're pretty limited on what we can do. He's got a proper seat. We have to run certain seat belts. He wears a better helmet than required. He's on a Stand 21 suit, so that's all the specs. So where we can, yes. But there's not much you can do to this car. I mean, the seating system with the proper seat he's got and stuff is as good as you can be.
Where's your next race?
For me or him?
For him.
For the one that's paying?
For the one that's paying is next weekend.
We're a month away from New Jersey Motorsport Park, which is actually the same weekend. IndyCar will be in Sonoma. So I've got some people that will run him over there for me. So
I see. You don't disappear and go with him?
I wish I could, but unfortunately, I like to say my real job is working for Chandler. I work IndyCar to pay for that job. So I have to go to Sonoma to pay for and then it's kind of cool. We raced at COTA last year with another team. We'll be down in COTA for the F1 race for the last F4 race of the year down there. So.
Oh, they run with F4?
Yeah.
F1,
We're kind of outcasts. You can imagine with F1, we got our own paddock way across, but.
Yeah.
We're able to get some passes for the paddock and stuff, so we do get to go sneak into F1 a little bit and look around. But it's a pretty big event.
Does anybody talk to you? I know when they were here, and I have a friend whose company sponsored. It seems to me it was Nicky Lauda, but I'm not sure. I said, "You spend time with him? We've never met him, never seen him. We go in and they don't talk to us, and they only put 30 million in, so it wasn't significant."
Right.
I guess.
Yeah. Exactly. They're a different breed. Chandler and I were in the garage area. We passed a lot of famous people. I think the one we talked to was Mark Webber. Yeah, Chandler's a fan of Mark Webber, so we stopped and talked to him for a second. Took a picture with him. But
what's he doing now?
He was announcing down there, wasn't he? Yeah, last year at COTA he was an announcer. So you see him. I don't know if they talked to us or not, but we ignored them as much as they were ignoring us.
Good. I'll teach them. Now, when Formula One first came here, they sent a couple drivers to talk, and Mark Webber was one of them. So I looked up, what did Mark Webber do? Nothing, really. He was but a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to him and got all the poop about Formula One and so forth. And it turns out he ended up not being a bad driver, but he obviously, even as a middle pack driver, you make pretty good money.
Oh yeah,
so he doesn't have to worry too much anymore, I would think.
Yeah, it's crazy over there. That's all you can say.
Poor guy Lewis Hamilton is doing what he's doing. He's only making reportedly $40 million. Well, I don't think I would do what he does for $40 million.
You take less, or you need more?
Damn right, I take less. Are you kidding? Oh well, I suppose if they can pay the commissioner of the NFL $40 million, they ought to pay a guy who could lose his life doing what he does. So it makes sense. Do you still get excited to go to the racetrack? I mean, are you pumped to get excited when you go to the track and I hear the engines run and start and all that kind of stuff?
If Chandler's racing, yes.
Well, yeah.
At IndyCar, yeah. I've been doing it, like I said, I've been doing full-time track sports since 1986 when I came out of college into Buick Motorsports. So it's really a way of life. I don't like the airplane traveling so much anymore.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'm a low-stress flyer. So whatever happens, happens, and we just go. I think it's becoming easier as the kids get older. You know, when they were younger, I missed a lot of sports on weekends, so I used to always go to all of their practices and stuff. So I was still involved, just I would miss stuff on race weekends. So as they get older now, it's a little bit easier. My daughter's graduated high school now and off to college, so now it's kind of I don't know. It's a way of life. Like I said, I've done it forever. I don't know any different. I don't know what's going to happen when I quit traveling. But no, yeah, I still like going to races. Dr. Trammell goes to all the ovals, so he's fun to hang out with. We try not to cause too much trouble, but so yeah, I still enjoy going.
Is there anything that you had in mind or you see that you would like to do or accomplish but haven't done yet?
Nah, I've been really lucky in my career. I've been a corporate pig my whole life, as I've called it. Come through the GM Motorsports program. I was with GM Motorsports for 9 years before I left to go to Ilmore Engineering, and I've always been able to be involved in a lot of different projects. I never got pigeonholed in one thing. I talked about I was involved. I've been one of the few guys left that have been involved in the Indy Lights program since day one. Now it's from the safety standpoint. When I first came to the IRL in 2002, that was my job. As I come down, Roger Bailey convinced me to come down to be the tech director for the Infinity Pro Series at the time. So I've seen that grow. So I've done a lot of electronics on the cars, fuel calibrations. Back in the early days, it was no lift, shift, pop-off valve control, ninth butterfly. I was involved in all that. I created the CART timing scoring program. I was the architect behind that when Swiss Timing told us to go away, or told us they were going away. I've been involved in designing the current tech rack that we have and different things. So I've been lucky and been involved in a lot of stuff, which keeps it interesting.
But you still manage to try and avoid trouble with Dr. Trammell.
He is trouble.
Okay.
But we're trouble together, so we laugh about that sometimes, actually.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know that you have many things going on, and I was hoping that with the week off that I could sneak you in here, and it worked.
Yeah, we actually have the weekend off. That's I said Chandler travels with me, so I don't know how many we did in a row. But since Indy, I think we've only had one other weekend off between his racing and all the stuff we're doing. So I'm not sure what we're gonna. I think we have to work on the race car on Saturday. So
what do you do when they're gone all the time? You play pinochle? You shoot pool? What?
Well, I travel with them when I can.
Oh, you certainly don't have a job.
she has to. You're kidding? We have a kid that races. She has to have a job.
Well, you said your daughter raced motorcycles early on. Is she into racing of any kind or any interest in it?
Yeah, she raced for about 3 or 4 years. And when I bought Chandler a go-kart, I looked at her and said, am I going to have to buy you one too? And at that time, she was heavy into softball and basketball. And she looked at me and said, nah, I'm probably okay. And it's like, whew. So, because there's no way we could afford two of them. She won't admit it, but she's probably his biggest fan and always has been.
Of course.
And when she was playing softball, it was funny because tournaments happen a lot on Memorial Day weekend, and she used to always tell her team, I won't be there. She says, I'll be at the 500. So, yeah, she's a huge race fan.
Good. Well, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for what you're doing to improve the car. And one thing everybody has commented on that have seen the pictures or actually seen the car run with the new windscreen, it looks good.
I agree. It's interesting because we presented to the drivers out in Phoenix. We gave them an update on it. And I had a picture of Mario Andretti's car. And I looked at Marco and said, look, Grandpa's car looks pretty much what we've done. If you look at some of the old windscreens, it doesn't look much different.
Right.
And those things were flimsy pieces of plexiglass, as we know. And that was part of the styling cues that we took to try to make it look nice. So it's been done before. We've people have said, about the looks and stuff, and we always show them pictures. Look, here it is, however many years ago. So
yeah, that's the way it was when I got here in 64, 63. I never thought anything of it. Now I think when the pictures I've seen of it, It looks good, and it's kind of retroing back. Plus, the car looks so much better.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
year.
We finally have a proper looking car for us old school guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we first put it on the car for real, we had it on different things. We had it in the Dallara simulator and stuff in the early, which is a tub, but it's nice. It's cool because it kind of disappears in the car a little bit. So I was happy to see it. That was good part of it.
Well, all being said, the car, as I emailed to Jay Fry and Mark Miles, I think I'm not a street and road course fan at all. I'm an oval guy, as a lot of us here are. And I said, I hate to say it, but the car runs good, and they've had some good street and road courses. They've been competitive. What they have at Mid-Ohio was 147 passes. I also got to call the producer, the television producer, because in Mid-Ohio they followed the action in 10th and 12th and 14th where there was fights going on, instead of looking out the front of the leader at nothing.
Yeah.
Trees. But I thought it was good, doing good.
Now the cars have been made a little bit harder to drive.
Yes.
Which makes them a little bit more competitive. You know, you have opportunity when guys screw up more when they're harder to drive like that, and so you get those passes and stuff. So.
Yeah, well, that's what they wanted. Let us drive the car. Now you quit crying and do it. And they like it.
We were actually entertained with the Mid-Ohio race. Our goal, we have a truck we work out of, obviously, and our goal for my group is to just sit and watch the race on TV because that means nobody's crashing. And so we love, there was guys that spun off and stuff, and our rule is if they come in on a wrecker, then we have to do an accident investigation on them, and that went green, white, checkered. So all we did was sit and watch TV the whole race.
Sound like a good idea. That's what I did.
Did you?
But I wasn't there. I was here watching.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for updating on what's going on. I look forward to all of the things that are coming. And try and stay out of trouble with Dr. Trammell in Pocono.
We will do. I was talking to him yesterday about that.
I see. You're already scheming. Okay, well, that makes sense to me.
We have a lot of projects we're working on. So
I'm sure.
One year, Pocono story, we decided part of the steering wheel study, we were doing a grip strength for all the drivers. So they were all in line for qualifying. And we grabbed our grip meter and put it in the car and said, here, squeeze this on both of them. So now we have a pretty good cross-section of the grip strength of each of the drivers. And interesting, the golfers are the strongest.
Really?
Graham Rahal and the bigger guys. My wife says there's a correlation to height and grip strength as well. So based on some of the research she does.
That?
She's a professor over at Marion.
Oh.
So, yeah. So.
She work with Michael Crawford by any chance?
Michael teaches classes there. Chandler's actually a business student at Marion, so he knows Michael and has talked to Michael because he's run successful Indy Lights teams in the past.
Yeah,
and so Chandler's has spent some time with him. Yep.
Well, that's kind of interesting. He's the only one that I know that came out of a driver's seat and is an instructor at a university.
Yeah.
Not too many of those around.
No.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate
You're welcome.
it. Appreciate you being here. The Director of Technology and Safety, Jeff Horton.
Thank you.
My next guest is on his way up here, but until he gets here, I will remind you that upcoming this weekend is the Classic Racing Times event out at Pocono International Raceway, and they're going to do night racing as part of the Pocono Vintage Celebration. So if you go out there, there's a lot of things to look at. They've got over 300 cars will be there, and the smaller ones, the sprint midgets and stock cars, will be running on the fifth mile. TQ midgets will be out there as well. On the fifth mile, it's on the main straight, and they've got lights because they're going to start at dusk when all the practice and qualifying is over. Then they'll run these cars to darkness. And if you're going out there, you've got to go and see this. You got some great cars, great drivers will be out there. They're going to have an autograph session. There's a bazillion people. So you want to check out the night racing, and it's all part of the Classic Times event that's going to be at Pocono Raceway. Over 300 cars. You'll enjoy it, so check it out. I got to get my page unstuck.
You want me to help you?
There is something that everybody should be interested in. If you're coming into town for the Brickyard or coming in for the airplane race, or you're just in town, you want to take a tour of some garages. I got a suggestion. Bill and Stephanie Throckmorton, owners of the Grand King Race Shops, have a limousine that they will take you, 6 to 8 people. They'll pick you up at a location, take you on a tour. You go to Grand King shop, you go to the museum, and several other stops along the way, and then they'll bring you back. It's a great way to go. It's a great car, nice car. If you're riding around, you're on the west side, go over to Grand King's old shop and take a look at it. But if you want to get information on what the tour is about, just call 317 820-3959, or you can call Bill's cell generally after 11 o'clock at night. He loves that. Just when he's yawning off to wake him up. His cell number, I'm only kidding about the time, his cell number is 317-371-0290, and the car is going to be here, I think, in 2 weeks. So you get a look at it, see what it's like, and decide if you really want to take a ride with them. You'll love it. You get to go to the museum, you see the amazing Unsers. There are books up here if you haven't seen it or don't know about it. Help yourself. Some pamphlets of books to take a look at, show you what the exhibit's all about. I want to also remind you that if you're interested in seeing what IndyCar drivers like most about what they do, get a ride with the Indy Racing Experience. Just go on to IndyRacingExperience.com and sign up. In the promo box, put SJ1. You get a 50% discount. Or you can call the office at 317-243-7171. Talk to Shonda and mention SJ1, and you will get a 50% discount. Take a ride. You will love it. And got to remind you that Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville, Indiana is a place to go into the country to find that the best prices are, in fact, in the country. When you deal with Sam Pierce, you'll find out why he's always rated at the top of customer satisfaction. Just take I-69 north to exit 234 and go south or east 1 mile, and you won't miss him on the right. Big dealership, great place to go, good people to deal with. Is it time for insurance on your home, your car, your commercial property? Do what I did. Call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. He'll help you with whatever your problems are, and once you get insurance with him, you have a problem, he'll help you. Give him a call. Check it out, 317-248-0070. That's VP Insurance in Speedway. And upcoming at Gateway, the Vintage Indy Registry. It's driving Indy Pass into the present is dedicated to history and preservation of Indy cars from 1911 to 1997. The Vintage Indy Racing Registry will be presenting the Open Wheel Icons IndyCar Weekend at Gateway Motorsports Park August 24th and 25th. Come see and hear a full field of vintage Indy cars on track each day, including the STP 68 Turbine and the Radical 72 Samsonite Parnelli. Visit VintageIndyRegistry.com and find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Tickets available at GatewayMSP.com. And if you're a vintage car buff, you need to subscribe to the Vintage Racing Quarterly. It's a great magazine, top class, full of information about cars that you knew as a young guy. They're back around and they're being driven and raced. Go to svra.com and subscribe to the Vintage Racing Quarterly. Great magazine. You'll love it. And the next SVRA event will be September 6th to the 9th at Watkins Glen, the Glen in New York. So if you're out that way, you want to stop in, you'll love it. My next guest is a gentleman that I put part of his resume on the website, so I'm not going to go through it. I will introduce him by saying only that this gentleman is probably the most recognized and most respected member of the motorsports broadcast ever. Please welcome Mr. Bob Jenkins.
Wow. Thank you. You know, I got to say that that 40 minutes you did with Jeff was just about the most entertaining and informative interview that I've ever heard on this program. I congratulate you and him because the information was great.
I've been chasing the kid for a while. You know, he's bigger than I am, so I got to be a little careful.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, when they get important like me, it's tough to chase people down and get them to come to your little show. But once in a while.
Oh, really? Yeah. Did I interrupt any mulching or landscaping that you're involved in?
No, actually, with my hip replacement, I've been very inactive this summer, and my yard shows it. But, you know, I had to lay out there for a few weeks, but now I'm back to normal. So anybody that wants to come and help me can do so. You do all the work, and I'll do all the ordering.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I know you and I talked in May, and you were saying that you needed a replacement. I said, I got one.
Yeah.
Best thing I ever did. And in fact, I was see the surgeon the other day, and he said, are you sorry you waited as long? I said, you betcha I am. The day he did it, I got up that afternoon.
Yeah, me too.
I've never had any pain since. Nothing.
I was the same way. Was up within about 3 or 4 hours after I woke up from surgery. The next day, I took a walk down the hall, and the next day, I was released and have had no pain, discomfort, or anything that resembles a problem since then. That was on June the 4th, so I'm past the 6 weeks, which is the time that they want you to take it kind of easy. But no, I've had no problems, and I too am glad that I had it done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That allows you then to walk at the speedway out onto pit road and climb up on the broadcast booth, because you will be on the PA for the Brickyard.
That is correct. Again, looking forward to it. I don't look forward to it as much as I do the month of May, but it's racing, it's at the Speedway, and I think it's going to be even better this year, the Brickyard weekend, because of the dirt track that we will see racing on. That's just going to be incredible. I'm so glad that the Speedway has done that, and I think if it becomes a permanent fixture, they will continue to have races there, hopefully on a semi-regular basis, and I think they're going to draw great crowds for everything that's on that track.
I had Kevin Miller here. They made the announcement on Tuesday, and I said, "You're here in town?" He said, "I live here. My wife and kids are all into hockey, and they're not coming down here, so I live here." So he came in, and I said, "Are they going to use this for more than one event?" He said, "As of now, no."
Really?
However, I have a feeling that if it's successful, I bet they do.
Well, it seems a little odd that they would pour concrete and put up catch fencing and do all the work that they're doing on the track for just a one-event thing, but who knows? I'm just glad that it's going to happen the one time.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting what they've got there. I think Dick Jordan said they got over 60 cars registered now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And a winning purse of what, $15,000 for the winner?
Yeah.
Which is the most a midget has ever drawn, obviously. It should be a good event.
Hope so.
You were one of the first, if not the first, broadcaster when ESPN came to life. You were here doing agriculture. How in the world did you go from here to ESPN? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned agriculture?
I try to forget things that I've done in the past, Don. Well, I was in the news department at the radio station, first of all, but this job came open, and it paid more money, and it had a company car, and I said, why not? So I did. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about, but I fooled everybody for, I think, 7 years, and then ESPN came along in '79, and they ran just a few races in late '79, including Winchester and Eldora, and Salem was the first race. And actually, Paul Page was instrumental in getting me the job because he had worked on NBC, and most of the officials, the hierarchy that started ESPN were from NBC. He recommended that I and Larry Newber, who was a salesperson at WTHR, Channel 13, and very knowledgeable about and a great race fan, so he recommended him and me, and we started in '79, and I worked for them until, I don't even know, I think it was 2005 maybe, you don't ever get fired in television. Your contract isn't renewed. So my contract wasn't renewed in, I don't know when it was, 2005, 6, 7, something like that. But it was fun. Had a great time, and certainly it has made me appreciate what goes on now, and it has made me a real critic of what's going on at television nowadays. And don't ask me about that because I'm not going to tell you.
I wasn't going to, actually.
Okay.
Because I figured you wouldn't tell me anyway.
That's right.
You don't want to start trouble,
right?
Necessarily. What is it? What got you into racing? Were you a race fan as a kid? Did you go to race? Did you drive? What got you into it?
No, I didn't drive. I tried it, and it didn't work. I don't really know. I grew up about 70 miles east of Indianapolis, and I don't know exactly where I heard about the Indianapolis 500. My brother was 6 years older than I, and he was a race fan, and so I think maybe I developed my interest in racing because of him. So the closest track, we lived in a great area for racing because we were about equal distance from Winchester, Eldora, and New Bremen, and we weren't too far, of course, from Salem and all the tracks in southern Indiana. So, yeah, I went to a lot of races growing up. Just fell in love with it. My first love, of course, was the Indy 500, and still is, and always will be.
Do you still get excited about there's a race, I'm going to be a part of it, I'm going to be a broadcaster, a PA?
Especially the 500 now. The PA job that I have with Dave Calabro and others is so much fun because you're not on the air, but yet you are. What you're saying is being heard by hopefully millions around the world if they're listening to us online and watching the streaming. But yeah, I love the job that I have now. I look forward every year to the track opening. I think I worked every day this past May that the track was open, and never got tired. You know, I live now in Crawfordsville, so it's about a 40-minute drive. But still, I just look forward every day, and race day is always the best day of my year and one that I look forward to year after year.
Are you making any appearance now as an MC of anything? I mean, you're not doing the awards dinner anymore, which I think is a shame. But are you doing any others?
No, not really. You know, I'm still doing this radio show for our friend in Brownsburg. 50s and 60s, and we've expanded that to 1970s now. And that's a lot of fun because I put it together at home, and it's a lot of fun. I have been asked to, I was going to say I got roped into, but I'll use better phrasing. I'm going to do a DJ type show for class reunion for the class of 1963 in Broad Ripple. So I have no idea what I'm going to do. I've done this once and had a live band, so it wasn't much of a job for me, but I'm going to do a DJ sock hop sort of thing in late September at near Broad Ripple. So that's about the only thing that I do nowadays.
But you have, I'm told, a huge collection of 50s, 60s music.
Yeah. Oh, I have about, I don't know. I probably have about 3,500 to 4,000 on display, and I've got probably another 3,000 that are recent 45s that were pressed in the 80s and 90s, so I don't count those. But yeah, I still have the collection. I started doing that, I don't know, when I was traveling a lot with ESPN, going to NASCAR venues, I would check out, see if there were any record shops in the area, and would go, and I just started collecting, and I didn't know when to quit, and I have now because I've maybe added 2 or 3 records in the last 10 years. So they're just sitting there and collecting dust. They're on display in my cave, if you will. And you're invited to come see it any time. The only thing is, if you come and see it, you have to buy it.
One or the whole thing?
The whole thing. It'll be cheap, Don, trust me. The shipping will be more than you'll pay for the records.
Yeah, but what would Brownsburg do if you left? Then what?
Well,
maybe they'll buy it.
Yeah.
No chance.
Now, everything's electronic now, you know. Everything is downloaded,
Yes.
whatever that means.
I don't know either. Do you go out to watch the air race?
I have gone once, the very first one, loved it. We fortunately had passes to get into the pagoda and free drink and food. Thank you very much, Speedway. I couldn't last year, and I can't this year because I have plans to go on a cruise, and so I'll be gone to up the east coast of the U.S., around the tip of Nova Scotia and down to Quebec City, where we will catch a plane and come back to Indianapolis. But that should be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. Going the opposite direction most cruises go. Most
Yeah,
of them go down
right.
to the Bahamas. You're
Yeah,
going north.
right. Well, this is supposed to, we'll see the fall foliage in the eastern states, and
Right.
yeah, it should be fun.
Well, I'll give the pilots your regards. Sorry you couldn't be there.
Right. Yeah, it was great. I loved it. Those guys are incredible, the pilots of those planes, and the maneuverability of them.
It's amazing.
Yep.
When I heard about it, I said, "You got to be kidding! That place isn't big enough to fly airplanes. Hell,
Yeah, I
they don't
know.
use that much of the place to begin with."
Yeah, right.
People don't realize how big it is in there. It's big enough to fly airplanes and not even come close to the grandstands anywhere. And they go in somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And they're what they have to do. There's certain moves they have to make. And if you hit a pylon, naughty. But the thing that impressed me that most, the pylon goes down almost before they come around again. It's up again.
Yeah, yeah.
For Pete's sake, you can't get a tire fixed that quick.
Right.
And they put these things up.
And Hellman Boulevard is the runway, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. I would urge you to go if you haven't been, or if you have, to go back, because it is a fun afternoon.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Is there anything that you wish you had broadcast, that you wish you had done during your
No.
career?
Not really. The only thing that I really took interest in over the years was racing, and there are certainly sports that I like and follow, baseball especially, hockey to a certain degree, but there's nothing that I wish that I would have done in terms of announcing those. I did do one other thing other than auto racing. I think it was the third event I worked for, ESPN, and they sent me to a track meet in Syracuse, New York, and I was the host, so I didn't really have to do, play-by-play and so forth. But apparently I didn't do a very good job because I never was invited back, but that's okay. I'll stick to racing. Thank you.
Somebody that I was surprised that you know of from down in Florida, and he's still racing, is Sport Allen.
Oh, yeah.
How in the world did you meet him?
Well, if memory serves me correctly, and sometimes it doesn't, I've told you about how I met Jeff Gordon, who was running sprint cars at East Bay Raceway just outside of Tampa. If I recall, Sport Allen was also driving there at that time. So I think I met him at the same time that I met Jeff Gordon. But he quit, didn't he?
He did, but he's back.
Yeah.
He's back running, and he finished 5th in the series he's running.
Really?
Yeah.
He must be, what, 60? 55?
No.
75?
No, that's not even. No, I met him from East Bay when he was racing there, and Sunshine Speedway. He drove there, and I met him, and he said, I know somebody you know." I said, "Who's that?" "Bob Jenkins." "Yeah."
Really? He remembered me?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I said, "How in the hell did you meet him?" He said, "I met him at the racetrack." And
Yep.
I thought, well, that's fun. And I got a magazine, Sprint Car magazine, I think it is, and I was going through all the racetrack, all the series, and I got to Florida, and there he was. He finished 5th in the series, which I didn't
Now,
realize he'd.
Bear in mind that was in the 80s, so I was only 15,
Yeah.
something like that.
It's a long way. I understand that. That's what I try and get away with too, but nobody believes me. Have you ever thought of, I'm sure you have, of writing a book?
I have been urged to many, many times, but I ain't going to do it. I do sit around the house, though, sometimes when there's nothing to do. I'm thinking, yeah, I might, but nothing ever moves me to the computer to start, so I highly doubt if I ever will. And I'm not so sure that it would be about racing if I did. I think it would be more about growing up in a small town and having a dream and being able to fulfill that dream.
That would be an interesting story, how you did it and the ladder that you climbed to get to what I consider the top, because there's no question, I don't think, in anybody's mind, even today when I say, we're missing in some of these races, what's that? Bob Jenkins.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
What can you say? But I gotta think Bones or Dave could write a good book. I mean, you sit down. If Dave could write one chasing around the East Coast with what's his name, Sid. from Speed Sport News.
Kanamaki?
Yeah, Chris, if he could follow him around, going the wrong way on one-way streets and surviving, he could write a book about you.
Well, see, that's one thing that I think about when I think about writing a book. A lot of stuff that I have experienced, I don't think people would have any interest in at all.
You might be surprised.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
You might be surprised. And it would give you a reason to say, well, I'm not going to cut the grass today. I got to do this.
Yeah.
Dave's coming over.
If somebody gave me a $10,000 or $20,000 retainer to start writing it, I might consider it. So anybody out there that really wants me to write a book, I'll maybe hear from you.
Right? Maybe you can sell them the records collection. That gets you
right.
started. Well, I'll tell you, I'm very pleased. I have to say, when I approached Bob about coming, I said, before the snow flies, would you come and do the program? He said, yep. I said, well, how about tomorrow night, 7:30 to 8?
Sure.
Sure. I said, something else. And you said, okay. I said, boy.
Oh, you said, well, okay, then I'll see you at 7:30 at McGillivray's. I said, okay.
A lot of conversation. Then I get a text this morning. How do I find the...
Yeah, I forgot about Auto Sport. I forgot the name of your show.
I guess that's how impressive what I do is. I mean, you already said that the interviews generally are crap.
No, I didn't. I said the one with Jeff today was exceptionally good.
You ought to go to the archive of, I think now 3 weeks ago, with Derek Daly.
Oh.
He was, I'm telling you, he was absolutely phenomenal. He was absolutely spot on, yeah. And a number of people said, well, I didn't think he'd be good because he's F1. No, he's not anymore. 30 years at Wish TV. Good grief.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously, the management is a little lax over there for 30 years.
I don't want to insult anybody, but, I work with several driver experts when I was anchoring the IMS radio network, and they were all great, but I think that I enjoyed working with Derek about as much as anybody. And I will always point this out, that when Little Al makes a move, Goodyear makes a move, Little Al wins by just a few tenths of a second, you'll hear Derek go, oh. And that's what I listen for when I play that. I know what I said, but I almost got it wrong, didn't I? Jeez.
Well, I think, to your credit, that many people miss hearing you. As I said in the opening, that I think you're probably the most respected motorsports broadcaster that the broadcast has ever had, and sorry to see you leave, but then you had to have your hip done, and you got to take care of the lawn.
Yeah, I'm really happy in retirement. I don't do much, but when I do want to do something, I do it, and so I'm very, very happy. I'm happy that I'm able to do some work for the Speedway. Hope that continues for as long as I can do it, and I'm just a really happy person, and I'm also very thankful that so many people have followed me during the years and say very, very, very nice things about me, even in my old age here.
I got shoes that are as old as you are, and I
Oh,
wear
come
the damn
on.
things. You're not. I got you beat by probably at least 10.
Oh, baloney.
Well,
How old are you?
79.
Well, you're pretty damn close.
Told you. And that points out what you have said earlier, that there's something about motorsports that it gets you and it grabs you.
Oh, yeah.
It's been suggested to me by, and I won't mention any names, but actually the name is SB. I won't say anything about it. You're getting old, you should quit. I enjoy it. I love the people involved in it.
Yeah.
It's a sport where you don't hear somebody beating their wives. You don't hear them getting arrested because they've been drinking too much, like the president and CEO, chairman.
I was going to say, you must
boy.
have missed something the last couple of days.
No, I didn't. And I saw an article in Racer magazine today written by, I forget who it was written by, but they say now is the chance for NASCAR to step forward with with Jim France taking over.
Yeah.
And he's a young 73, so he's a kid. That's what we're in that bracket. Show them what to do.
Yeah.
Nobody asks me, I tell them anyway. Oh,
I was going to say something, but I forgot. That's how old I am.
I have gotten to the point, and I figured out what it is. I'll have an idea, I'll get up, and I'll start walking. What the hell was I going to do?
I'm the same way.
You walk through the door. That's the problem. If you stay on this side of the door, you'll remember. If you go, oh yeah, you go through, it's gone.
Yeah. You got to turn it back and go where you were originally to think about what you were thinking originally.
It happens constantly.
You'll all get there.
I have pads and pads and pads of paper that I've now taken to the thing. Instead of going out the door and saying, what the hell was I doing? I write it down.
Well, that's a good idea.
The minute I think of it, I write it down.
Yep.
Then the other problem is to find the book I wrote it in.
I know what I was going to say. I was going to say a lot of people have approached me at the Speedway and said, I thought you retired. And I always tell them I did retire from work. Working at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is not work, it's fun.
Since the time you started till now, do you find the drivers any different? Are they more approachable now than they?
Oh, I think so, yeah. Yeah, and I think they have learned that you've got to be, if you're going to increase the popularity of your sport, you've got to maintain a relationship with the people who are paying the money to get in to see you do what you do. And I think we are in a really good position now with drivers who understand that. They do go out of their way. They will accommodate autographs and pictures as much as they can. And if we continue in that direction, we will continue to grow in popularity.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the crop now, as you say, does understand that, and they're required, I guess, by contract with the series to make X number of appearances. But some of them, they say that doesn't matter. You ask them, they'll go.
Right.
Because they get it, and that's what it takes.
Yep.
Well, we'll be listening for you at the Speedway.
Thank you.
In May, and perhaps somewhere else. I might stumble across you at a Home Depot or somewhere.
I have my lawnmower blade sharpened every week, so you can come watch me do that.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Thanks for inviting
snowing,
me.
So
I enjoy it.
Good to be here.
Thanks to you,
What can
Abby.
you say?
Every
Bob
one
Jenkins.
of you too. Thank you.
We will be here next week. Exactly who my guests are, I have a number that said we'll check our schedule and get back to you, and so far they haven't got back to me. But as I remind you each week, autosportradio.com, go to the Autosport Radio tab, click on it. When I've got a guest, they'll be there. And I send it out on Facebook and Autosport.com Facebook page. I got 2 of them, and the website. So look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next week, good night.
I'll be 71 in about less than a month, September 4th.
I feel fine. I got a new hip. I feel good.
too.
I can cut the grass. If you haven't got an amazing Unser book, come up and pick some. There's a stack of them up here. Help yourself. If you got friends you want to give them to, take 2 or 3. And don't forget, August 30th, you can take a ride with the Kiss the Brick Tour